Welcome along to the Sporting Life and Timeform Weekend Bets podcast, whatever cast. We are here to discuss the big races at Ascot, Lingfield, and perhaps beyond as we go head first into classic trial season with plenty going on all over the place. I'm joined by Matt Brocklebank and David Johnson to discuss the big races. And gentlemen, we'll go straight into Lingfield and the Derby and Oaks trials. It looked like it might be really significant, the Lingfield Derby trial this year, with high definition penciled in for it, but he's been scrubbed out. And we are left with Adair, who's going to be a fairly short price favourite, I think. David, we'll start with you. How significant do you think the Lingfield Derby trial will be this year in terms of Epsom?
Yeah, you're probably not expecting to find the Derby winner in here, are we, anymore now that high definition is out? And, it sort of totally changes the complexion of what we were dealing with. Earlier in the week, I think we were talking about saying how we're looking to see high definition possibly taking him on. Obviously, we don't get the opportunity to do that. Adair was always going to be the obvious one to take him on with, but now you look at the price that he is, around 11-8, and you start beginning to think, are there chinks in his armour? It's a smallish field. It doesn't look like there's a lot of guaranteed pacing. And that was sort of what was behind him getting beaten at Sandown, wasn't it? He shaped just about the best horse on the day there. He had to come from a long way back. And Alan Carr got first run. The second horse the third horse, the other Godolphin horse, Ubia, he sort of let the form down a little bit in the D stakes yesterday. So around 11-8, I'm beginning to sort of think maybe we can try and get him beat. I don't know what any of you guys thought.
Yeah, well, I'd certainly try and get him beat, I think, at those prices. But you mentioned the pace there, and that'd be a real worry with Kyprios, wouldn't it, Matt? Because we saw him in the Zetland Stakes. He came over for it last year, didn't he, at Newmarket, and looked to be really up against it. He struggled that day, but he did at least come out this season and get on the board with a win. And Aidan O'Brien's brought him over. He's got the first time cheap pieces on both of the Ballydoyle horses have. Do you think these Ballydoyle horses, are they sighters for Aidan, or could they have a say in the big one?
I think we're getting to the stage, aren't we, where he's going to have to start bringing out the A-team at some stage. I mean, it's very hard to deny the fact that I think the Dante Stakes at York next week and obviously the Derringstown this weekend are going to be, they've got to be the standout principal Derby trials this year. They have to be. Just look at the entries that have come through for the Dante. It looks really, really strong. And obviously we're shaping up to see some really nice horses over in Ireland at the weekend. And I think these are probably the second string. Kyprios, you've got to afford him respect. I think there's going to be wet weather around, isn't there, again on Saturday up and down the land, I think. And this horse has won on heavy at Galway. And just knowing the kind of test that Galway presents as well, it obviously it's the other way around, but when it comes to, it's a tricky track essentially, isn't it, Galway? And we know that horses that handle that can go on slightly idiosyncratic courses, which Lingfield is. Let's not escape that. So that'd be a tick in the box for Kyprios. For me, I'm struggling to get away from the Charlie Appleby horse. I know they probably will be a little bit disappointed with the way that Ubia ran at Chester and certainly didn't build on that run. But this horse did shape like the winner, the moral winner on the day. And he sort of looks to me like a winner without a penalty here. He'd be carrying £3 extra if he had got up at Sandown and come the same route. So I'm struggling to take him on. I don't think there's a bet in the race personally because he is too short. But yeah, he's by far the most likely winner in my view.
Yeah, it sounds like no bets for you. I'm just wondering whether to give Recovery Run another chance because he's a massive price. If there was 8 runners, I certainly would have an each way bet on him. But he ran too bad to be true in that Sandown Classic trial. And we know Andrew Balding's often come on for a run. And if he does significantly come on for a run, which he will have to, if it gets bets back to his best 2-year-old form, he was obviously second in that Zetland Stakes that we were talking about earlier, he'd have a chance, the son of Nathaniel. I mean, he'd have no chance in a derby or anything like that, but he might win a renewal of the Lingfield Derby trial.
You can't underestimate his experience as well, I suspect, around Lingfield in a race like this, where you've got a few sort of twice race colts that might just prick their ears and struggle on the downhill run anyway to the bend.
Yeah, but like you two, it is a difficult race to find a bet in. So we'll go onto the Oaks trial here, and Technique heads the betting for for Martin Mead after her second at Epsom last time. A race that was probably let down a little bit by Verco at Chester earlier in the week, David.
Yeah, like you say, it's another trial that we haven't seen boosted. Technique, I think she sets the standard here. That's not telling you anything that you can't really see from the betting. You know, she's a relatively warm order at around 9-4, I think. But I did like the way that she went through that race at Epsom. She sort of got there to beat Uncle Bryn and then just got not worried out of it, but just chinned late on by Werco, who was able to challenge it a little bit later. And I remember saying at the time that I could see Technique coming on and running well and probably winning an Oaks trial without necessarily being a real interesting one for the Oaks herself. But I mean, this is a race that I was going round in circles in and struggled to find a bet. The closest I came to having one in this race was probably the filly of, sorry, let me just turn my page, Ocean Road, Hugo Palmer's filly. She shaped really well a couple of times as a 2-year-old. She was far too green on a debut at Nottingham behind Noonstar, who will hopefully be seeing in an Oaks trial at York next week. But she's really impressive, I thought, when she won at Lingfield next time. It's one of them where you need to go back and watch the videos. You're watching it and thinking, is she really going to be able to get up from there? She's got a lot to do, but showed a real good turn of foot there. She should be fine back on softish ground. She's a half sister to Wigmore Hall. So, you know, the class is there in terms of the pedigree, and she obviously needs to take a big step up, but she was the closest. If there is one that could come on and go to the Oaks out of this, I thought she might be it.
Perhaps Ocean Road then for David. Have you got one in here, Matt?
She was the one I landed on, Scoop. Yeah, definitely Ocean Road for me if I was to have a bet in the race. I think there's going to be a fair amount of momentum around this Noonstar. I do think there's a bit of support building for her, and this might just really enhance her claims if Ocean Road goes in here. I like the fact she's won at Lingfield. I like the fact that she hit the front at Lingfield, like David said, with a good burst of speed, but I don't think she did an awful lot in front when she got there, and she still won by nearly 3 lengths. So I think there's lots under the bonnet there, lots of talent. She's quite raw still, so she hasn't posted those big figures that David's after. When you look at the time form ratings and you weigh that up against Technique, she's got a huge amount to find on the bare figures. But we're at that stage of the season now where these fillies and colts just come forward a huge amount. I think the step up in distance obviously is going to suit this daughter of Australia. I think, yeah, lots to like about her. I was hoping she might be just a fraction bigger in the betting, given the amount of improvement she needs to make. Obviously, she doesn't have an official rating yet, but I think she would weigh in a fair way behind the principals in here. But 6-1, 13-2, there's nothing against her at all. I don't think she's going to make the value bet column, Scoop, but if you put a gun to my head and have a bet in the race, it'd definitely be a small win bet on Ocean Road.
Yeah, I quite like Nash Nasher with that improvement in mind. She obviously has to take a step forward from Sandown, but I really liked her attitude that day. She gave a £7 penalty away to a couple of highly touted fillies, didn't she, including the Frankel sister. I liked how she did it. She does have to take a step forward, but she could well do Nash Nasher for Charlie Appleby. So she's
another Lingfield winner in there as well, isn't she?
Yeah. Certainly on my radar. Right, big betting race of the weekend, Victoria Cup at Ascot. Let's get straight into it. Who do you like, David, in this race?
Yeah, I took the view that obviously we need to start doing something to whittle this field down. And historically, high draws have tended to outperform the lower ones. So that was where I was looking at. And you know, I sort of ended up with a pretty long shortlist of 5 or 6 still, but the one I
think we all have, yeah.
The one I've come down on is River Nymph of Clive Cox's, who got some really strong form from similar kinds of race last year. There's a Newbury race in particular that she won. Tranchi was second. He came out and ran loads of really good races after that. And Dania, I think, was third that day, and we've seen him obviously come out and run well in races like the Lincoln and Spring Cup this year. River Nymph was actually only an 11-2 shot for the Balmoral on the back of this Newbury win. But you can put a line through that. If you remember, that was the race where you actually needed to be low, and he was one of 9 or 10, I think it was, that was stuck down the middle of the track. The mile might just have stretched him as well. So I think with that in mind, you can also forgive his run in the Lincoln. And if you're looking at him on his 7 furlong form, I think is really, really interesting. Equally, like I say, I think a high draw could be an advantage on the day. He's one of those that's going to be quite near the pace. 14-1, I think he'll do me in what's obviously a really open race.
Another man with a long short list is Matt Brocklebank. Matt, you're only allowed one. Which one is it?
Yeah, interesting. David kind of starts with the draw in terms of that. And I kind of attempted to start with a draw and just found myself going round and round in circles, just given the fact that there is pace high and there's pace low, there's a little bit in the middle as well. I know. And like you say, historically, you can kind of win this race from anywhere and depending on the day. And we're expecting a lot of rain as well on Saturday. And I was just struggling a little bit to sort of pin my hat to a draw horse. And if there was one, I think it's probably going to be Sunset Breeze, who's drawn 29 of 29. And Luke Morris is going to say, right, we're going on the stands rail and we're going to go hard and go fast from the start. And he's been well backed on Friday. I can really see that. I think Sir Mark Prescott might have one here. I think he started off on a mark of 69 and he's up to 91 now. Probably not done yet, given the fact that he was second to Double or Bubble. It was obviously running in the listed race tomorrow as well on Saturday. And then he was second to Tranchy, who's gone up in the weights a huge amount as well. So probably still a bit of juice in that mark off 91. Just for me, whether he's more of a Wokingham horse, whether he's going to be more of a proper out-and-out sprinter, 6 furlong horse. If Luke Morris does go hard from the off in such a big field on softer ground, he might just tie a close home on the stiff finish. And I kind of put a line through the draw, and I've ended up on a horse drawn 11, which might not be ideal, but he might be able to tack over towards the group further towards the far side. It's Jumeirah Bay for Roger Ver in a 4-year-old that I think that could have a huge amount of improvement in him. Several factors to think about when it comes to that. The gelding operation might just be one of them. It was a horse. Look, he's only won a Chepstow maiden. It just doesn't tell the whole story at all about this horse. He's got an element of class. He went off 6-4 favourite for a big York handicap last summer and was chinned by Brunch, beating a short head. He was getting £1 from Brunch that day. Brunch has obviously gone on second in the link, is rated 101. Now this horse is rated 89. I just think there's huge scope for him from that kind of mark in terms of overall basis of horses that could be so much further ahead of the handicapper than the rest. He just stands out a mile for me. And Varian started the season so well. He's got a good record with gelding horses for the first time. And I think the horse might handle Ascot as well. It's a big unknown. And I think a lot of people are going to be looking at horses that are proven at Ascot and rightly so. But if you just want to try and get an edge away from the crowd, a horse like him, a son of Siuni, whose progeny do tend to go well at Ascot. I think he's only had 3 winners, but the record overall, they've run well there. And he handles soft ground. So Jumeirah Bridge, he'll travel well. Ray Dawson rides him for the first time. Ray Dawson, 5 winners last week, really on the crest of a wave. I think there's just a lot to recommend him. 14-1. He's not a wild price, is he? But I think there's just still a little bit of juice in that as we speak on Friday afternoon. Hopefully he's going to be around that price as well, where by the time the column goes live later on today.
Okay, good case for Jumeirah Bay for Matt. I like Harrison Point here for Archie Watson, drawn in the middle under Holly Doyle. He ran in the Britannia last season, the red hot Britannia, 80-1 he was, but he ran really well in ninth, wasn't beaten far, only faded in the last furlong. Obviously that race is over a mile, so I think he'll like 7 furlongs at Ascot with juice in the ground. He's won a couple of times on good to soft and soft in 7 furlong handicaps. And he's run at Wolverhampton last time, over 7, nearest the finish, looked a lovely platform for going into a big handicap like this. And I think he'll just keep finding for Holly Doyle. And he's probably not a sexy one, is he? He's not one that looks to have loads in hand, the handicapper.
He's a trier, isn't he?
He's a trier, and I think he'll give you a good run for your money at something like 20-1, possibly a little bit bigger. So Harrison Point for me. Right then, gentlemen, we're going to finish off with our best bets for the weekend. David, we'll start with you. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Lingfield for the 325, the Chartwell Filly Stakes. And it's the German raider, Axana, that catches my eye. Double or Bubble's favourite. And it's not that I want to knock her as such. It's just that I'm not sure her form suggests that she should be quite as short as what she is. She was impressive at Newmarket first time up, but it was only a handicap off 91, whereas some of these rivals have already got proper group form under their belt, including Oksana. Back as a 3-year-old, she was runner-up behind Main Edition in the German 1,000 guineas. She's just as good, I think, as what she's shown at 3 and 4 as she is now as a 5-year-old. She made a successful reappearance in a listed race at Hoppegarden in April. She's really impressive that day. It's worth trying to look out for the video if you can. She won by 3.5 lengths that day. I mean, I'll be honest, I wouldn't have chosen stall 1 if I could, but the stalls are going to be in the centre, and it's obviously not a big field. I just think in terms of what she's achieved, she shouldn't be around a 6-1 chance when Bounce the Blues only has similar form and is around 3s. Double or Bubble is shorter than that, and obviously has never run on softish ground like she's going to encounter here. Isabella Giles, has she definitely trained on? She was a bit disappointing in the Fred Darling, and she's got a penalty for her Rockfell win as well. So I think she's got a bit more on than what the odds suggest. And Oksana, she's proven at this level. She's got form that's on a par with the favourites, and I just think around 6-1, she looks overpriced.
Excellent stuff. Oksana for David in the 325 Chartwell Filly Stakes at Lingfield. Matt, where are you going?
Did wonder if you wanted to go, Scoop. I could have the last laugh.
I'll give you the last word. Yeah, that's absolutely fine, because I'm going to Haydock and the 345 there for the Potence Network Spring Trophy Stakes, a listed race over 7 furlongs. And I like Raek here, number 5 for Brian Meehan, a Kingman colt who looks to have plenty in his favour heading into this race. Now, I think a few of them, like Lord of the Lodge and Kesa, I might just struggle with the softer ground conditions at Haydock. I think for them to put in their optimum best, they'd probably want it a little bit quicker. But Raek, he loves the soft, as he showed when romping home at Ascot in a handicap last season. And he ran well in a Newbury handicap off top weight over a mile earlier this campaign. A race that I think is going to work out well. Oh, This Is Us has already come out and franked the form, and I think quite a few others will as well as the season goes on, including this horse Raek, who looks primed and ready for a return to 7 furlongs. And the Brian Meehan yard couldn't be in better form. He's rattling in winners left, right, and centre. So while the yard is in good form, in a race that looks set up for him and perhaps not, is perhaps against some of his key rivals, he's the one for me. So Raek in the 345 at Haydock. And Matt, the last word goes to you.
I only said the last laugh because it's Laffy in the 230 at Ascot. The listed Buckhound Stakes. I just think this is going to turn into a real, given the forecast, this is going to turn into a real survival of the fittest. And he's a massive son of noble mission, this Laffy. Sir Michael Stout's horse. Won a handicap over course and distance under 10 stone just last year. Sir Michael Stout, 5-year-old, look, he's open to lots more improvement. I think he needed the run. I think it was a good renewal of the Further Flight Stakes, in which he was a shade disappointing at Nottingham just last month. But I think he needed the run. I think he found the good to firm ground way too quick. He was just climbing in the closing stages. This will be far more up his street. And I can't argue with Deja and the Lightly Race Without a Fight sort of topping the market, but 12-1 about Laffy. I think this is going to be run at a really good clip. Stall 10, he can slot in. Richard Kingscote seems to be striking up a really good partnership with Stout this season. Lots to like about him. Big brute of a horse who's going to go through the ground and handle a track at Ascot. Brilliant,
interesting stuff. Thank you so much, gents, for joining me. A recap on our best bets: Laffy 230 Ascot for Matt, Oksana 325 Lingfield for David, and Raek 345 Haydock for me. Be sure to check out sportinglife.com and timeform.com for all your punting needs this weekend, and good luck with your own weekend best bets.